The nervous system is one of numerous systems inside of our body, and it's mainly concerned with communication. So the nervous system consists of many nervous cells or nerve cells, and its main job is to pass electrical messages throughout our body. So what will happen is a receptor will detect a certain stimulus that is present in our surroundings, and then that receptor will relay a message to a nerve cell, and then the nerve cells are able to take those messages to our central nervous system to decipher, come up with a response, and then relay that response back out into our body. So a nervous system consists of two parts. We have our central nervous system, which mainly involves our brain and spinal cord. And the job of these two is to firstly decipher messages. So what by that I mean, they will receive a message that's come from a receptor, and they'll work out what it's all about. And then once it comes up with a response, it will transmit a message back out into the body so that our body is able to react and act upon that particular stimulus that is received. We've also got the peripheral nervous system, which is the second part of our nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is to do with the relaying of messages via nerves between our organs and receptors within our organs and the central nervous system itself, for messages to be deciphered and then sent back out throughout the body. So if we have a closer look at nerve cells, I'll do my best to try and draw nerve cells here. So a nerve cell looks a little bit different. We've got kind of a cell body there, I suppose, and a nucleus. The nerve cell will look something like this and contain this long part and then some sort of fingers at the end. You might redraw them, I reckon they can look a little bit better. Alright, that's not too bad. So these are long looking things like this with lots of kind of fingers and bits on the end, and what we also see is if we're drawing another nervous cell here, they kind of interlock and intertwine at the ends, a little bit like so. And then we'll see another bit that looks maybe something like this in the end. Not the best nerve cell going around, but it'll get the job done. So a couple of the main parts of nerve cell, we've got this really long bit here called an axon. And the axon gives the nerve cell some length, and it means that one nerve cell is able to pass a message along a further distance than if they didn't have this longer kind of axon. And what we also see is these, I'll change colour to make it a little bit more clear, but we see this kind of tangle of fingers and projections on either end of our nerve cells, and these are called dendrites. And it's these dendrites that are able to, or are involved in passing on a message from one nerve cell to the other. So what we get is we get these dendrites meeting in a fashion that looks, I guess, something like this. So we'll have one dendrite here, and then we might have another dendrite here, like so. Once again, this is all very rough, but it will get the job done. So these are either end of dendrites of different nerve cells. So we've got nerve cell 1, we've got nerve cell 2. So what we see is between nerve cells, we have this kind of gap here, okay? And this gap is called a synapse. So in order for electrical messages to be passed along, I mean, to this point here, we've got an electrical message, and from this point on, we're going to have an electrical message, like so. But an electrical message can't pass the gap between the two nerve cells from dendrite to dendrite. It's got to be able to cross this synapse. So it's important to remember and note that messages are allowed to, or able to, pass through nerve cells to the end of the dendrite until it gets to the synapse, before needing to change into a chemical form. So what we see is it will travel down, electrical message will travel down a dendrite, get to the synapse, be changed into a chemical form in order to pass across the synapse, and then the next dendrite of the next nerve cell is able to pick up a chemical message and return it back into an electrical message to keep relaying it along. So let's have a look at what this process looks like from sort of start to finish. So from a receptor receiving a stimulus, and then our nervous system coming into play. So let's imagine that we've got here a snake. Okay, so we see a snake. This is going to be our stimulus. Okay, so stimulus is the snake, and because we're seeing this as a result of light, receptors in our eye are going to be picking this up. So the receptor here will be a photoreceptor. Oops. So a photoreceptor is able to pick up light and see this stimulus. So it's a snake, it's something in our environment that we're going to react to. Now what will occur is from the receptor, a sensory neuron, which is part of our peripheral nervous system. Sensory neuron will then relay a message to part of our central nervous system in our spinal cord. So sometimes messages will be sent to the brain, which is also part of the central nervous system. Sometimes messages will just be sent to the spinal cord. Generally, if we need to react to something really quickly, it will just go to the spinal cord because we are able to deliver an action or a reaction a lot more quickly from the spinal cord than the brain. And then a message of response will be sent via a motor neuron. Once again, part of the peripheral nervous system, will be sent to something called an effector. So here, what our effector might be, that's supposed to be a leg there. So this is going to be our effector. The effector is the part of the body that is going to actually put in place the particular action or activity. So in this case, it might be movement. So what we've got here is a muscle. The muscle or muscles in the leg are going to be the effector. They're going to put into practice, into action, the message that we're getting from our central nervous system. So the muscles are going to act as an effector in our legs, and then what we finally will get is a response, and in this scenario our response is to run away. So what you can see is a number of different steps take place, from a stimulus being received by a receptor, relayed to the central nervous system by a sensory neuron, the message or the response passed back out to an effector by a motor neuron, and then we get a particular response. So that's an overview of the nervous system, the parts of the nervous system, and how messages are able to be relayed throughout the nervous system in order to respond to particular stimuli.